Wrestling, the War Room. Wrestling, the War Room. Wrestling, the War Room.
Welcome to the War Room. Our very special guest today is Jordan Blanton. We're kicking off a new series, ILLINI Legends. And who better to start off with than Jordan Blanton, who is not only an Illini legend, but an Illinois legend. Thanks for coming on, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited and happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And you know how we have to start. What's your favorite movie?
I was trying to do a little thinking about this leading up to today, and it just so happened that Rudis came out with a new clothing line kind of partnership with the Jean-Claude Van Damme Bloodsport movie. And I think as far as combat movies go, Bloodsport and Rocky IV, to me, are like head and shoulders above pretty much any movie out there that I've ever seen. Those are my two favorites for sure.
That's fantastic. I love Bloodsport.
It's the best. I want them to remake it with maybe some modern characters from the UFC or some wrestlers or something.
That would be very cool. I want to make fun of your choices, but they kick ass, so I'm not.
Okay.
Your favorite cartoon, Jordan?
My favorite cartoon, gotta go back in the memory bank a little bit.
It could be when you're growing up.
That's what I'm trying to think. You know what? This actually kind of ties in well with my high school mascot, but I was a big fan of Rocket Power when I was growing up. It was some California kind of extreme sports kids. They rode bikes, skateboards, surfed, that kind of stuff. That was a pretty good one when I was coming up.
That's totally new to me. I'll have to look it up. What about Marvel or DC?
So I'm not a big movie guy, but I'm a huge fan of the Marvel, of the Avengers, really. So I gotta say Marvel.
Okay, I think we're totally unanimous on that so far. What about hobbies and special interests?
I've found the more simple I keep it, the better things go. So my number one hobby is wrestling. And it's kind of cool to say that because for most of my life, up until this point, it's getting kind of changing a little as I get older. I won't be able to say most of my life forever, but when I was a competitor, wrestling was my passion. It was my focus above all else. But outside of my competitive nature, my training and competition and everything in it, it was also my hobby. I loved watching wrestling. I loved following it. I loved going and watching it in person, watching it on TV, online, anything like that. So now at this stage of my life, I'm coaching and I'm very involved in the sport, but it's still my favorite hobby. On a Friday night or on a weekend or pretty much anytime there's wrestling going on, that's what I enjoy doing. Outside of that, I like to be involved in my church and hang out with my family and my wife back in our hometown, go to parents' farm, that kind of stuff, and then I enjoy what I do working-wise. So I pretty much work all the time. In my mind, my mindset, I'm always working, especially towards my goals, but also, as you know, plumbing goes, it doesn't really matter whether it's Christmas Day or a holiday or a Sunday or the middle of the night. If people have plumbing issues, they need a plumber right now. So I kind of always stay a little bit tuned in to plumbing as well. And balancing those things has so far been relatively easy. I enjoy all of it. It keeps me plenty busy. And that's kind of the recipe for me for happiness and to make sure that I'm feeling productive and fulfilled.
Well, that sounds like a full day to me, Jordan.
For sure.
Now, for everybody out there who doesn't know, and I don't know who you are or why you don't know, but Jordan was an IKWF state champion in 8th grade. He was a 3-time state champ for Richmond Burton with a 152-1 high school record, is a multiple-time cadet and junior Fargo All-American, and at the University of Illinois, he earned 3 All-American honors. He had 110 wins wearing the orange and blue, which is top 10 in school history. Now, before I start grilling you, Jordan, let me say this. A movie comes out in 1985. It's called Vision Quest. It stars big Hollywood names like Matthew Modine, Linda Fiorentino, and Madonna. The movie makes millions of dollars. The soundtrack makes millions of dollars. It tells the story of one guy who had one vision quest one time. Now, folks, let me introduce you to Jordan Blanton, who has had a vision quest every other year his entire life. So what I think when I think about you, Jordan, and I think about Vision Quest, what it epitomizes for me is the word relentless. What does that word mean for you?
That word means a lot. I like to say it's my mantra. When I was in high school, my wrestling coach, Brett Wojcik, my freshman year, he was a first-year head coach. He was 23 years old at the time. Young guy. Played college football at University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And he was a phenomenal coach. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. He had a short tenure. I think he had about a 10-year coaching stint, but he had an incredible amount of success. And I learned a lot about becoming a man, and I learned a lot about wrestling and preparing myself and competing at a high level from him. And one of the things that I think about often now is the way he kind of came into a program that had no real expectations. It didn't have big numbers. It didn't have a huge track record of success. But when he came in, he put, I don't know, our wrestling room is maybe 40 feet long by however wide. But on that 40-foot wall, he probably put a 20-foot wide Relentless, painted the word up there. And every day we'd see it, every day we'd talk about it, no matter what you were doing, drilling, wrestling live, conditioning, extra work after practice. He always found a way to incorporate that word and that kind of philosophy. Constantly pushing yourself, constantly trying to get the most out of yourself, not quitting when it gets tough, not stopping, not slowing down, finding a way to bite down on that mouth guard and keep moving forward. The repetition of that, the way that seed was kind of planted in my mind, grew and sprouted, has ultimately led to, I got it tattooed on myself. I started a wrestling club back in my hometown with that as the name. It's called the Relentless Training Center. And anytime I'm trying to figure out how to best characterize or best explain how my mind ticks or how my approach is most easily explained, it's that word relentless. No matter what the situation is, no matter what the deal is, whether the cards are stacked against you or things are going smoothly, if you're on a hot streak, if you're relentless in your actions, if you're going towards your goals with a relentless pace, because you know there's going to be hard times, you know there's going to be speed bumps, you know there's going to be adversity. But if you stay relentless and you stay at it, you can accomplish whatever you're setting out to do. Basically, the time I was 14 years old until now, I'm 32. Every single day of my life, I've thought about that word. I've spent a lot of time considering it. That's how I live my life.
Well, I think it also described your wrestling, too.
Absolutely.
You had 2 of the super matches in IHSA history, Mike Benefiel and Chris Spangler. I've got video of the Spangler match, so I wanted to ask you about that and see if you could go through that, because what I saw there was relentlessness.
Absolutely. I'm a kid from Richmond, Illinois. Richmond, Illinois, when you drive into town, it's a town of 1,900 people. A phenomenal community, great people, great teachers, great coaches, great mentors, all throughout my community. And a lot of hard-nosed, tough kids that were my friends, that were the athletes and people that I looked up to. Basically, all of a sudden, I had a lot of success in middle school and elementary school in wrestling. I became a state champion in 8th grade, but I get into high school and I just immediately go on this run. I was maturing. I was technically getting better, and doors were opening for training opportunities and traveling and competing and learning in the sport. So I get out to a hot start right away in my freshman campaign, and I won 111 matches in a row. At that time, the internet's big, the message boards are big, wrestling was in a good place, and I just started finding myself basically in the newspaper, if not every day, once a week in the sports section. I was a topic of conversation, the Illinois Matmen message boards, and I'm trying to just comprehend all of this, and luckily, with Coach Wojcik, I was put mentally in a place where I was like, all of that stuff goes to the side, and my focus is on what I can control. My eating habits, my training habits, the extra work that I'm putting in, the internal dialogue that I'm having with myself, just constantly trying to push the envelope forward and grow and evolve as all of this stuff was going on. So my junior year was a setback. I lost in the finals, but it prepared me in a lot of ways just to be able to handle those types of pressures and whatever else. And then my senior year, I was super fortunate. Tyrone Bird, another Illinois wrestling legend, part of the 2005 Big Ten championship team, is a year or two out of college and gets an assistant coaching job and teaching position at my high school, Richmond Burton. So I was coming off that loss my junior year, but I had, in my opinion, the best training situation of anybody, any school, anywhere in the country, because Tyrone could push me and challenge me and open my eyes to a whole new style of wrestling, really prepare me for that college style of wrestling so that when it came to February, I was going to be prepared. I wrestled a high pace that match, and I loved the fact that you kind of watch how the match is going early on, and I get a blood timeout, and you could see the coaches in my corner giving me whatever they needed to reset my mind. The millions of times I visualized that match, I knew there was going to be some type of adversity. I knew I was going to have to grind and fight, and they had me prepared, and I went out. It was a 6-minute match. One thing I think of now, I didn't know it at the time, but one of Coach Huff's favorite sayings was, "It's a marathon, not a sprint." And I wrestled that match like it was a marathon. I wrestled at a high pace. So I think I was able to wear out my opponent, be able to get to my scores, and ultimately come away with the victory and a legendary match that I'm super grateful for the opportunity and super happy that it went the way that it did.
Like I said, you were in 2 of the super matches in IHSA history, and that was one of them.
Yep.
What I saw kind of reminded me of the World Chess Championship going on right now. Magnus Carlsen is a guy who will grind and grind and grind and gain a small advantage here and a small advantage there until finally he's in a winning position. And that's what I saw with you in the Spangler match. You kept growing so many small advantages that eventually he was forced to lose.
I look at wrestling, and this was said in a podcast I did recently, it's the best vehicle in life for personal development. That's my approach to life. The Relentless mantra ties right in with that. This journey that we're on is full of so many ups and downs and adversity and hiccups, and just when you think you got it figured out, and just when you think things are going good, there's going to be some type of curveball thrown at you. What's so important to me as I get older and as I'm coaching and trying to pass down maybe some of these lessons that I learned on to the next generation, it'd be great if it was smooth and it was easy and you could just go out and win a match and didn't have to hardly break a sweat. But that's really not realistic. In life, you're not just going to be able to put it on cruise control and be successful and have a great life and be fulfilled and live life with purpose and feel like, man, this is really going good. It's the grind.
You got to grind through those bumps.
You got to grind through those bumps, and it's the little by little. I like sayings a lot. One of the sayings that I like a lot is like, it took 10 years to become an overnight celebrity. And I love it, because what happens is if you live your life a certain way, if you're constantly pushing yourself and if you're challenging yourself and getting better, most of the time, and I think about this all the time, all those extra workouts when I was in college, all the hours and hours and hours I spent in Huff Hall with maybe 1 or 2 of my teammates or maybe just by myself late at night after hours, after lifting, after practice, that extra time. It was there that I feel like a lot of my success was. And before that, when I was in high school, the actual workouts I did, it was all that time that nobody ever saw and nobody even was probably aware of. Putting in that work, just like putting money in the bank, depositing money in the bank, and just stacking it away.
Yeah.
That's just a part of it. And then here and there, you circle those dates on your calendar in wrestling. Hey, this is the NCAA tournament. This is Big Tens. This is Midlands. This is a big dual meet here, a big dual meet there. That's your opportunity to go out and perform and get rewarded and have your success there. But in life, you don't really get to circle the calendar. So you're putting all that work in. You're staying disciplined. You're staying consistent in whatever it is that you're pursuing. Eventually, there's going to come a time where you can perform. That, to me, is such a great lesson. It's something that I try and keep in perspective in everything that I'm doing as a coach, because a lot of people, and I think it's human nature, they think or they want it to just come easy. The first time you do it or the first time you attempt it, oh, what the heck, it didn't work. It's like, that's okay. You gained experience there. One of my mentors in business used to tell me that experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And in wrestling, in business, in life, I've had a lot of experiences. And I set high goals for myself, and I want to accomplish high things. But at the end of the day, I'm enjoying every step of this journey. I try and live my life with an attitude of gratitude and really focus on all of these challenges, all of these opportunities, all of these things that happen in life. I'm grateful for them because I'm either winning or learning. I'm getting something out of it. I'm either getting experience or I'm having success. That keeps life fun, it keeps it light, and it makes it manageable to me.
Let me jump back to my Vision Quest analogy.
Yep.
When you were in college, Jordan, 174 was the golden age of that weight class.
It sure was.
It's crazy when you look at the brackets, when you look at all the names there, and you know all the names, you know all the people. They were all studs. You were a 3-time All-American. Now, I just wanted to run through the names like Ed Ruth, Chris Perry, Jay Borschel, Logan Storley, Josh Asper, Robert Kokesh, Mike Evans, Matt Brown, Nick Heflin, Ethan Lofthouse, Nick Amushastegi, Chris Heinrich, Stephen Dwyer, Ben Bennett, Mac Lunas. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yep.
And you ended up getting 3 All-Americans out of that crowd when some of those guys maybe didn't do quite nearly as well as that.
It's a beautiful thing. I look back on it. I went into college with a mindset like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to push myself and challenge myself. I was with a really tough, really good recruiting class. There was a lot of great wrestlers around me. Conrad Foles, to this day, is one of the most skilled and technical wrestlers. That whole list of names that you just ran down, I really feel like when Conrad was at his best, he maybe was better wrestler than every single one of those guys. And there may be 1 or 2 that give him a run for his money, but he was at that level. So there was a lot of practice days. And not to mention the John Durgos and the Mike Puettas, Tony Delagos, and all the other guys I was training with on a daily basis. But in my mind, when I was in college, I'm fighting for my life in this room. I'm prepared and I'm ready to go against any of these guys. But now that I'm a little bit older and I look back on it, it's like, I'm really proud of my accomplishments, and I look at that list, and it's like, man, this is a tough sport. That was, like you said, in the Big Ten, my senior year, I was a 2-time All-American. I had 5 washers in Big Ten that year. All 5 of those guys were All-American, and I placed ahead of some of them. I beat most of them at some point in time throughout that year. But that just goes to show you, that was a grind. But it molded me and it built me and built my mind and created a sense of belief in myself. I knew I can compete with those guys at that level.
There had to be a Vision Quest every year almost.
It was, and that movie it's such a classic. When I look back, I said that Bloodsport and Rocky IV are up there, but man, Vision Quest is, that soundtrack I think probably takes the cake. Rocky IV and Vision Quest, I think those are the 2 best soundtracks. But as far as the impact that certain movies had on my life, that type of committing yourself to your goal and doing whatever it takes to accomplish what you set out to, looking at the rankings and the brackets back then and who you were going to have to beat, in my mind I had full confidence. I was like, heck yeah, bring it on. I want every single one of these guys because that's where I was putting myself on a daily basis. Those were the matchups I wanted. I didn't want the easy route. I wanted to go against those guys. And it challenged me and pushed me and helped in my development so that even now I look at myself, I'm in a different arena. I'm no longer a wrestling competitor, but I'm on the same journey that I was on back when I was a kid, 18 to 23 years old, and before that in high school. That stuff, the impact that it made on my life and the confidence and self-belief that it gave me is a huge blessing and something that I'm super proud of. And if you commit, if you put your heart and mind to something, you can accomplish anything you want.
Yeah, yeah. Your stance is historic. I call it the caveman.
Yep.
You're leaning forward, you got your arms draped down, they're protecting your entire legs. So how did you come up with it and why?
That's a great question. Dustin Schlater was a true freshman national champion. Every time he ran back to the center, he wanted to do a stance check. Put his hand on the mat, make sure he was low enough. I was a freshman or sophomore in high school at that time. That made an impact on me. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to do. So every time he runs back to the center, he's doing that stance check, making sure he's low. That's what I want to do. So as I was growing, as I was developing throughout high school and college, I had literally changed my whole posture. My back, still to this day, when I get in my wrestling stance, I have a bowed back, my back's strong, my shoulders are kind of broad, and when I put my hands on that mat, you had a post recently about sumo wrestlers. It's kind of like that sumo wrestling position, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a great position, lead with my head in my hands to block anybody off, but also to be able to move forward without a huge fear that my legs are exposed or whatever. So that was just kind of a combination of a lot of things that allowed me to wrestle the style that I wanted to, where I could be forward moving, but also still protect myself.
That's exactly what I was going to say, but you went ahead and said it before I did. And that's that you got your arms to cover your legs, you're protected there. You can still hand fight at any second. The analogy I draw is to boxing. I boxed as well as wrestled, and when I see MMA guys go out there who are wrestlers and they don't protect their face, I cannot believe it. The one way that you're going to go down is they're going to hit you in the head. So you better keep your hands up there.
That's right.
That's the analogy I draw to your stance, which I think it's pretty unique and it's very cool.
I appreciate that because I had issues with guys getting in my legs, and I really had to figure out a way to be disciplined. Like I said, I wanted to go forward. Sometimes, especially when I was young, moving forward came at a little bit of a cost. I'd expose myself. My opponent could time it out, but ultimately I was able to figure out a way that worked, and it served me pretty well.
Now, you mentioned earlier having a culture around you that helped you, and I understand that you're moving on with Relentless Training Center, and you've got that culture there at Relentless Training Center. Tell us about that.
So this is something I'm very, very proud of. My brother-in-law, Ryan Prater, who was one of my college teammates and roommates for a short time at Illinois, we both live up in Spring Grove now. He married my wife's sister, so we're married to sisters. And we came up here, slowly started out. We were coaching a couple kids in the basement. In the back of my mind, I knew getting back involved with wrestling, especially in my home area, giving back and training the next generation of champions was something that I wanted to do. Kind of as we got into it, it started to grow. Felt there's something here. Let's go after it. With our networks of our teammates and connections we have around the state, coaches we've learned from, et cetera, I felt like there was an opportunity to build something where kids could come in, be a part of it, grow and evolve and challenge themselves and reach new heights and maybe develop a new passion for wrestling that otherwise they may not have been able to. When I was growing up, there wasn't tons of wrestling opportunities around here. The beauty of it is there are now. There's a lot of great clubs up in this McHenry County and Lake County area, but we offer something that's a little bit different, and we're getting kids to come in and buy in, and they're training hard, they're training consistently, in season, in the off season, making jumps, making huge gains. That's something I'm really happy with. One of our wrestlers this past weekend, they kicked off the IKWF season, and one of our kids was 0-4 or 0-6 lifetime against the kid. And he went out there, and I think he beat him like 11-3 or something like that. Never beat him before, and he's getting bonus points on him now. That's the kind of stuff that fires me up. It really makes me excited because in our community, in this area up here, I know that there's just stud wrestlers in every neighborhood and on every block. They might not realize it yet, but if you can match some of these kids' personalities with some good coaching to light that fire and let them start to really chase down their dreams, I think great things can happen up here, and it's already started.
Besides Ryan, you've got Tony Delago and Kyle Dooley, right?
Yep.
That's quite a coaching staff. Kids have to want to seek that out.
It's unbelievable. It works out because we're all very close. Outside of wrestling, we're all good friends. We spend a lot of time with each other, and we all live in a relatively close proximity. So when this started coming around, when we started coaching and running the club, talk to those guys, hey, you should come up and check it out. They started coming, developing relationships with the wrestlers and getting involved, and next thing you know, you look at our coaching staff, we got the all-time pins leader from the University of Illinois, Tony Delago. We got Division III NCAA champion and a guy that's beat a who's who of NCAA champs and All-Americans, and Ryan Prater. You have a 3-time All-American and me. You have 3-time Illinois High School State finalist and Kyle Dooley, who was also one of those guys just during our time period, from Mike Poeta to Jimmy Kennedy to Conrad to myself. Dooley, he was a starter at one point in time, but from his freshman year all the way through college, he was always brought on our trips when we'd be traveling because he was a great practice partner. He worked hard. He'd go with Jimmy, then he'd go with Mike, then he'd go with maybe Durgo if he had to. 3 workouts in a row to help them get their weight down, get a good drill in. He wouldn't bat an eye. He's just a tough son of a gun and can handle that. So the mat time and the experience and what he has to offer to these young kids, these young competitors, is a huge gift. It wasn't around when I was growing up here. What we're trying to build and kind of what's developing right now is really something special.
Like Brian Medlin says, why can't Illinois become like Dagestan or North Ossetia in Russia?
Oh, 100%. He's spot on, and I echo that. And I said this in a tweet. It was either 2020 or 2021. Well, I had to have been 2021 NCAA championships. It was the most NCAA qualifiers by region throughout the United States. It was like a heat map. And you looked at Chicago and the suburbs of Chicago, and it looked like it was on fire, cherry red. It was, Pennsylvania's, so well known, but right there, the state of Illinois was just glowing. And I'm like, we're like the Dagestan of the United States. There's champions, there's studs in here. And I look around across the state at Josh Alber started his club. We have our club. All the existing clubs that have been around for a long time. There's such great coaching. There's such great competition at all these youth tournaments, all these high school tournaments. I think the golden era of Illinois wrestling is still to come. I think all these legends that have come through that have had all the success that they've had, it seems to me more than all that success and more than anything, they're passionate about the sport. They're passionate about the state. They're passionate about giving back to the next generation. And I think the fruits of that are going to be super, super special.
Yeah, and I think I heard you say in another interview that your Relentless Training Center has been open for a year and it's starting its 2nd year, and you've already helped out 100 kids.
Yep.
That's growth right there.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. We didn't know what to expect. I told my wife and my sister-in-law and Prater when we were kind of talking about this and what this was going to be like. I'm like, I want to do this till I'm about 60 or 65. I'm in this for the long haul. I want to be a part of wrestling in this area. I want to have an impact on kids. And like I said at the beginning of this interview, this is my hobby. If I have free time, I want to be around wrestling, and I want to be around wrestlers because those like-minded individuals pushing each other, building that culture, getting people to buy in and believe in themselves and believe in setting goals and working hard to accomplish them and competing at big events and having success and winning big tournaments and climbing that ladder. At first, competing at the state tournament's a huge deal, and then winning the state tournament's a huge deal. Then it's nationals, then a national champion, then a world team, a world medalist, a world champion, an Olympic team, an Olympic medal, an Olympic medalist. Those are realistic goals, I think, for this area. I've seen Tony Ramos do it. I've seen Daniel Dennis do it to the high levels. I've seen Jimmy Kennedy do it. seen Lee Munster make a junior world team. These guys are all right in our area, right in our backyard. I tell people all the time, there's a Daniel Dennis on every street corner or in every neighborhood.
I have to ask you about this, Jordan. I did a Google Street View of the entrance to your facility, and
Yep.
I know you say that you're a blue-collar guy, that you come from a blue-collar town, that there's farmers, there's hard-working people everywhere there, but the Google Street View showed a thrasher going down the street, and I thought that was awesome. I also wanted to ask you about the RTC, the Relentless Training Center merch, your merchandise.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
I have to admit, I have bought an Augusta Hyperform compression short sleeve shirt. It looks cool.
Oh, you've been rocking it?
I haven't got it yet. I just bought it.
Okay.
I'm looking at the Badger C2 Fleece elastic bottom sweats, but I don't know what fleece is, Jordan. What's fleece?
Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot. I guess fleece is a warm material to keep you warm, but I'm not the fashion guru. I leave that to Prater, so he builds all the gear and he sets all that up.
But what I have to add is this. You know, I love that stuff. I've already got the shirt. I'm gonna get the sweats. It's the hat though. You got to talk to Prater about the hat. It's a trucker hat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I call it
Do you like the fitted?
I like the fitted. Yeah. I like to call that the farmer hat. Perfect for your area, but I'm gonna wait for the fitted.
I think there's something we can do about that.
But let me tell you this. This has been a blast, Jordan. I love talking to you. I wish you the best of luck. I think you're going to send kids off to college, and they're going to do great things.
I really appreciate it, Greg. This has been awesome. I'm super grateful for all you do for the state of Illinois wrestling community, and especially the University of Illinois wrestling community. Your stuff is great. I'm honored that you had me on, and it was great to talk.